For those of you who have been following along, and for those of you who haven't, we are Creative Science. We are an online magazine covering tech, marketing, and sales. Please, if you like this video, give us a like. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, and I'll also post a link where you can make a donation if you want to help us out. Without any further ado, I'm Luke, the editor-in-chief, and I'd also like to introduce Sam.
Thank you, Luke. I am the deputy editor for creativescience.io. I've been here for 11 and a half months, so the 1 year mark is coming up very soon. Maybe we'll plan something fun for that. I've been meeting a lot of interesting people along the way. 2 people today that I think are very interesting in the event marketing space, Heidi and Nyleen. And with that, Heidi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. I've been in marketing and event marketing for over 20 years now. I run a B2B marketing agency, and my special sauce is getting brands in front of a CEO or executive audience. So if you have the ICP of a CEO and you're a brand and you want to, meet those people, let me know.
Great. Nyleen, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, with pleasure. I'm Nyleen Balady. I'm the Global MICE Director at Merlin Entertainments, where we provide unique venues around the world for corporate events. Those include Legoland, Madame Tussauds, Sea Life, the London Eye, tons of amazing theme parks and attractions. I lead the growth strategy for meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. And throughout my career of about 20 years now, I've worked in various aspects of events, from hospitality, sales, sponsorships. I've driven event executive experiences and conferences. So my work's always been around helping organizations harness live experiences in order to build the relationships and strengthen their brand, deliver their messaging, and ultimately drive meaningful business results.
Perfect. And let's start off with our questions. Heidi, we'll ask you first, and then Nyleen will also get your answer for this one. What's your definition for events marketing?
That's a great question. So for events marketing, I feel like all the other pieces of marketing are the rehearsal. And when you're in an event, it is a no redo live experience where you're getting your brand in front of your target audience. So I think event marketing is probably the most valuable of all the marketing stack. Most marketing interrupts people. So you're sending them a banner, you're sending them, an email, you're interrupting people's day. And with event marketing, you are taking, a good couple of hours with undivided attention. So I think event marketing is probably the most important of all of your brand awareness stack that you can have.
That makes a lot of sense. And with that, I'd like to dive in a little bit deeper. So Nyleen, how can a marketing team leverage that in-person event, especially in the age of AI, where it seems like AI can do basically everything, but maybe not event marketing? So what can a marketing team leverage in this new AI age?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in-person events allow people to experience a brand. I don't think that human connection face-to-face is going to be replaced by AI. I'll say any day. I don't think the industry will ever allow it to replace that in-person feel. So in-person events are reaching beyond simply hearing about a brand. They create emotional connections. They provide opportunities for the brand to tell their story and to stimulate authentic real world conversations that you can't quite foster digitally or through an email campaign. So when attendees leave with a memorable experience, they then want to share that experience with their entire network. And then they turn into brand advocates, and they're extending the brand's reach well beyond the event's ending. And not only through that audience engagement, but then the value of the content generated on site. I mean, it's useful for years, if not just straight up evergreen. So that all supports countless subsequent areas of a business and in their efforts to build out a brand.
Can I jump in too? I just want to say that AI can help with, compressing logistics, like agendas and, like logistic things, but in a world where most of your interactions are either digital or with a bot, having a human-to-human interaction is going to become more valuable. And so in-person live events are more valuable than, an email or a chat bot on a website. Like none of that's going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah. And Nyleen, I just wanted to make sure we also got a chance to dig into your take just on what events marketing is. For people that maybe aren't familiar with it, how would you put it in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, at its best, it's not about hosting an event, but creating memories that build trust. It stirs emotion, it deepens relationships, and it just creates lasting memories that ultimately influence your audience's behavior and then your business outcome.
Great. That's awesome. And just to kind of follow up with our next question, can you talk a little bit about how a marketing team can, what's the playbook for using an in-person event to build your marketing strategy or bolster your marketing strategy? Heidi, let's start with you.
The playbook, but I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like how would a marketing team utilize an event? I'm putting together a marketing program. I have PPC, I have all the different elements, right? Where do events fit? How does a marketing team utilize them specifically?
Yeah, I think for any marketing team, you should use events as kind of the everything else is before. Like you use emails, texts, digital SEO in order to build up to an event, because once you get into that event, that's where trust is built especially between like a CEO and a brand. The trust is going to be built better in a 20-minute, stop at your booth, as long as you have something relevant to say, versus 50, impressions of a display ad. So I think, you use all this stuff in order to get people to have a reason to be in the room with you. But once you're in that room, you're not only building relationships with the brand and the CEO, but also you're doing like a trust verifier because all the caliber of the other CEOs in the room as well.
Yeah, and I would build on that by saying, like, it's a really noisy world, and I think AI is making it even noisier. I mean, it used to take us a whole week to build out the event website, and now you can do it in like 5 minutes, apparently. So brands need to do more now than ever to cut through this noisy world, and eventually most brands will be implementing aspects of AI into their workflows. And like we said, it does compress some of the setting up for success process, and that's a positive. But brands can't let up on creating really intentional, meaningful opportunities to engage with their audience. The genuine in-person human interaction is becoming increasingly rare, and the bid for our time is becoming fewer and fewer things are getting into my personal calendar, right? Because now I have 20 invitations where historically maybe it was 2 on any given weekend. So brands have to just keep their eye on building out genuine in-person human interaction, and that will excite audience. It'll get them to the event and build relationships. And like Heidi said, it's going to develop that sense of trust. We all have a spidey sense. We all have an immediate, I like them or I don't like them. And having that in person cuts through the online noise, the visual noise, and gives them an experience that can leave a lasting impression. And that's only built face to face, or in this hybrid world, like maybe there's a virtual component too, but the face to face is the really powerful, because we all know hybrid, a lot of people are multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting because, Heidi, I understand you're specialized in event marketing for CEOs, and Nyleen, I know at Merlin you have to really introduce brands to different demographic audience, such as like families, students, seniors, potentially veterans, right? All different interests in their own personal lives and a different place in their personal lives. So how do you set up the event in a way that brand can really stand out at Merlin? There's a lot of different things that you're doing, but what do you do for the event to really get the brand to introduce themselves to that audience?
Yeah, from a general guidance perspective, I would say brands need to stay in the position of their audience. So what would be the right venue for them? What is the right time of year for them? What is the right communication strategy? Because it's not a one size fits all. So keeping in mind your audience's needs and solving for those needs and having those things factored into your decision-making process when it comes to events. So it also is very clearly anticipating the timeline required to pull together a meaningful event. Don't underestimate the lift it takes. So if you know a product is about to unveil in September, then I hope you started working on it at least in February, like at least the initial outline of what your plan of attack is going to be, and finding the right venue, the right date, so that you're best positioned to really reach your audience and solve for their need. I think you gotta keep that in mind. It's not about you and I have this shiny thing. It's about, what do people need and how does my shiny thing solve for that?
Yeah, I think that brings up a great point. I mean, it's A, understanding your audience, and then B, like really thinking hard about how is this going to be executed and giving yourself enough time to do it. Heidi, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people think event marketing is just logistics, but it's not. You also have to have a background, or at least an understanding of customer service and hospitality, because you have to think about your customer or your prospect's journey, right? Like, what are their needs? What are they going to want? What's going to make them feel comfortable? And what's going to put your brand in the best light?
I would build on that and just say that brands should make sure that they are not only planning for the event, but the reality is, I don't know what, 25% of the work happens after the event ends. So on stage, they announce that's a wrap, but the reality is it's like only a wrap for the person holding the microphone. Event marketing teams are implementing this elaborate plan after the event in order to really harness, like, it's priceless content that comes out of your in-person events, and it's priceless follow-up on those new and revitalized leads, those new audiences that you've reached, and really analyzing like the insights and the learnings, like the ROI, everything to inform your future event strategy. So the amount of work that I call mop-up after an event is extensive, and keeping in mind that you can't just move on to the next thing. We're all really busy and it's hard to get through some of that post-event stuff, but that post-event is going to then generate so much subsequent traction for a brand.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think event marketing is just brand awareness, but it's actually one of the most trackable ROI generators, revenue generators, because you know who is in that room. And then when they become a client, or they, up their order, that is a direct correlation to them attending this event and building trust with your brand and meeting the needs that you need to meet.
Yeah, I think that's really key. And Nyleen, I like what you said about like the mop up. I mean, some of it is just making sure that okay, these people attended my event. What's the plan to get them from there to, you know, a sales conversation or to a close? You know, it's I think there's just so much intentionality around it that, you know, a lot of people don't realize. Um,
Mhm.
do you think that there's any misconceptions that people have about conferences? I want to make sure that we talk about conferences specifically as well.
I think as salespeople, if you're attending a conference, they kind of think that they have to go to the sessions. And really, I would prefer that if they're having a good hallway conversation with the prospect, skip that session. Like, I don't, I don't
Mhm.
need you in that session. I would rather you have meaningful conversations one on one and maybe miss the entire conference. But if you went with a strategy and you had 10 people you wanted to meet and you've met them and you've had great conversations, or you sat down at a table of strangers, you're not hanging out with your coworkers, sat down at a table with strangers and start meeting people. I think people think you have to like be on the agenda and the schedule, but that's not really where all the good stuff is.
And
That's
with,
absolutely true.
and with that said, Nyleen, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen events happen or in conferences from a marketer or even a salesperson?
Yeah, from a conference perspective, the first one is just waiting too long to explain how you help people. So in a busy conference environment, you have to quickly articulate the problem you solve and the value you provide. And there's, you know, the most common question we all get, what do you do? I recommend not responding with a job title. Instead, presenting the outcome that you provide to clients. Don't tell people what your title is and what your day-to-day generally entails. Tell them what real-world problem disappears when they work for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Uh, what if somebody is new to an industry and going to their first conference, do you have any other tips for getting the most out of the experience? Like, how do they dive into that first conference?
Can I jump in there? I've got a really
Sure.
good one. So I get nervous. I mean, not super nervous, but a little bit nervous. And one of my best tips, especially going to a conference or an industry networking event, is to ask more questions than you get asked, because everybody's favorite subject is themselves. And if you are nervous, it's so easy to ask somebody about themselves. You're going to get a response. You'll strike up a conversation. So that is always my first tip for people attending a conference is ask more questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and building on that, I'd say, well, there's a quick nugget from last week's experience. I don't recommend booking pre and post conference meetings like your other day-to-day work stuff. Like, it's going to be a late night. You are going to be relatively peopled out if you're really working the floor. You're just having so many conversations. You're waking up so early to then do regular day-to-day work meetings before or after, and it takes away from maximizing this networking opportunity like before you that you cannot replace. Like, it's happening these days, and that's it. Back to the value of brands hosting in-person events. You have their undivided attention. So there's that. And then I would also recommend, to get the most out of the experiences, especially at a conference where there's exhibitors and everything, like, take a moment to look beyond the speakers, the exhibitors, the agenda. Like, every successful event has an entire ecosystem of planners, marketers, sponsors, tech, production teams. I mean, just so many people. And so it's a great opportunity to see them all there and understand how the pieces intersect with each other, because there's always opportunity to learn more about what our sector is doing, how our work can benefit each other, how we can bounce off of each other. So And you may even discover like a career path or a passion you didn't even know was an option. So just go in with curiosity, go in with a light agenda, but leave room to be surprised and delighted, to be stalled in the hallway and have a meaningful conversation, and just take in the full scope of what the place has to offer.
Yeah,
That's great.
With strangers too. Sit with people you don't know. You never know what's going to happen, who you're going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
I have a follow-up question to that. So you've attended a conference, you've met a bunch of people, maybe you've taken business cards or you've connected on LinkedIn. How do you turn that into something? What's the follow-up? Are you going to send a bunch of LinkedIn messages or emails? How do you make it organic and kind of keep it personal rather than, oh, hey, I met you at a conference and just a reminder, here's what I do?
I'll jump in on that. The thing that I try to get out of these asking questions of other people is I actually like to ask a lot of questions that have kind of not too much to do with their work and where they're from. Obviously, you've determined that, but I'd like to get a nugget about that person. We have pets in common. We have a birthday month in common. We have a favorite vacation destination in common. Just take something that breaks you away, differentiates you from all these salespeople going in with a very traditional approach and lens of, I want to get your information and I want to sell you something. Like, break away from that and be just authentic and relatable, and then take note of that. And when you do your follow-up, use that to lean in. Oh my gosh, how's your cat today? You'd never guess what my cat did. Whatever you have that you can identify in common, you should lean into that, because that makes you a human, and people do business with people they like.
That makes sense.
I have a lot of contacts, so when I'm meeting people, especially if it's somebody that I really wanted to meet, I try to figure out how I can help them. I'm not asking them for help. I try to figure out, do I have a contact that I can introduce them to? And then I'll email them like right there. Or is there somebody that they need to meet that I know? So I try to be a connector more than a taker.
I think that logic applies to a lot, even outside of event marketing. Just connecting as human beings tends to help move things forward, as opposed to transactional buying and selling. But Nyleen, you touched briefly upon career paths a few minutes ago, and I'd like to dive in a little bit deeper to that. And Heidi and Nyleen, for both of you ladies, with your skills and experience in the space, how would you recommend someone that is interested in getting in event marketing? How would they start, especially with, obviously there's a lot of turbulence in the job market right now, and AI is shaking up a lot of that, but event marketing is absolutely crucial. How would you recommend someone in college or university to start in event marketing?
My key advice, and it's honestly something that I'll give to anyone who will listen. I gave it to my niece and nephew, just mostly younger people, is step back and understand that everything you see before you is a job. From the piece of paper on your desk to the VP spearheading events, like there must be 20,000 jobs or more in between that, from production and sourcing and sales and marketing, coordinating. I mean, there's just countless layers. And I wish I had heard this as a child. It would have broadened my understanding of what do I want to be when I grow up. And so I really just advise, like, taking the full scope of everything that's possible, and even potentially audit what might be missing. Is there a niche that you can, and you may not even be able to see it until you're in scope, because there's so much you learn being there. But just understand the holistic realm of possibility. It doesn't have to be just the job description that you thought. I wanted to be a veterinarian when I grew up. I didn't realize I could have been all sorts of elements that veterinarians engage with.
Yeah.
I think anybody interested in event marketing needs to realize it's kind of a jack of all trades as well. As much as there's like specialties, it is also, you're going to have to understand logistics. You're going to have to understand, customer service. You're going to have to understand web design, email deliverability, like all these other pieces that come together in order to produce a live event. It is a lot of pieces.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think as with any job, it's really just kind of build you've done this thing, you've done that thing, and how do you kind of piece those things together? Um, I just wanted to take the last few minutes to ask you both just what you wanted to, if there was anything that you wanted to talk about that we hadn't covered already. Nyleen, starting with you.
I mean, I would say my general message is that AI is going to be so helpful in so many ways. It can create content, it can streamline, it can do a lot of thinking for you, but it can't replace that deep human connection, which is, I feel like everything we've been circling back to through this is like, there's a real human connection that will move the needle for a business. So as technologies just become so powerful and ubiquitous, we have to keep at the forefront of our priorities that building memories is going to be the differentiator. The companies that are the ones communicating the loudest or having automated the most with AI are not necessarily the ones that are going to get the furthest ahead. They'll be the ones that will be getting furthest ahead are the ones creating meaningful moments with their internal and external audiences. I think it's for another segment on like people and culture, but investing in your team on the internal and streamlining that turnover potential by having events that build trust internally and externally, that stir up emotions, not only for your internal team, but for your audience. And just locking in memories, things that people are emotionally attached to, is going to be critical.
And I think it's the scarcity principle. When human to human interaction becomes more scarce, then it becomes more valuable. And it's, a proven way to reduce churn. It's a proven way to generate, new business. And I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. I don't think AI can replace human to human interactions.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that we've kind of hit on the human element of this a lot of times, and just the person to person interaction and how events facilitates that. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Uh, I think we're about at time. We've got maybe 2 minutes left. Is there any last thing that you'd want to say to the audience, either of you?
No, I mean, if you're a brand that needs help getting in front of CEOs, we can chat.
Mm-hmm. And if
Okay.
you're a brand looking to have a unique, memorable experience and think outside of the box of a traditional ballroom, let's have a conversation.
Girl.
Perfect. Thank you both for joining us. I think this was just a really fascinating conversation, and I appreciate you both sharing from your expertise.
Well, thanks
Thank
for
you
having us, guys.
Yes, thank
All right.
you.
To everyone in the audience, we'll join you again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.